just dried mud. And when we have to get them to the kiln and fire them, to convert the clay into ceramic, because it's a kind of a magical process. But you know, clay is very soft and squishy, and there's even a little bit right here that was dry, but you know, just clay this is a little stiff, be stiff for throwing on the wheel, but it would be okay for other forming methods. But this is what we call a plastic clay, but you can give it almost any shape. And it depends on the fact that it has water. There's clay, which is a particular type of earth material. It's combined with water, and there's no other material that has this quality of that you can squeeze it out like this and it'll stay together. And it's sticking together, even though you've squeezed it out thin, and you can give it all kinds of shapes. But when it's soft, there's limits to whether it'll stand up or not. And that's why you have to be able to control the moisture content of the clay at each stage as you go along. But it's very soft and plastic is the term. Now, up until the time you fire it, you can recycle clay over and over again. It can get bone dry. I mean, this is white in color, but this is some white clay here. But see, this is become bone dry, so it's totally brittle. And yet you can soak it back up, and it'll be plastic again, and you can use it again. For instance, some of those pots that are up there, people could decide that they didn't want to finish them, they didn't want to fire them. So we could just crush them up and put them in this machine over here with water and get it all mixed up again and use the clay over again. And that's pretty nice. I mean, clay is a relatively inexpensive material to begin with, but the fact is that until you fire it, you can just do it over and over again. If you don't like something, fine, no problem. Soak it up and use the clay again. But then once it's fired, you know, there's this kind of magic that converts it into a very hard, permanent material. And this is an example. Well, this one's kind of dirty. That's a fired pot with a glaze on it. You can see this is the glaze, and that's what we call the clay body. That's the unglazed part, because in the kiln it would sit like that when it's being fired. But it becomes hard and very durable, and actually it's the most durable man-made material there is. That is ceramic, because that'll last longer than anything. And you know, that's why in archaeology it's so important that people learn a lot from the remains of pottery that may be thousands of years old. But that's a kind of magic. And once you've heated the clay hot enough, that is to about red heat, or a little hotter than red heat, the clay gets converted to this hard ceramic, and there's no going back. You can't convert it back to clay. That's it. But until you've gone through the firing process, you can just keep reusing it. And that's pretty magical, the fact that, you know, enough heat and you can convert this totally soft plastic squishy material into something that's, you know, hard and dense and very, very durable.
What do you feel are the more important parts of your work?
The more important parts? Well, that's hard to say, really, because all my work depends on all the different parts that you have to do. I think the most important part is sort of sticking to it and getting it done. That's like any other job.
Are there parts of the job you especially like?
Well, yeah, the forming probably, throwing pots. When you make things on the wheel, it's called throwing. I enjoy that. I like the making process. I don't particularly enjoy the glazing process usually, but I like the results, if it goes well. So I like the actual making the best, and then I enjoy firing too. It's just something nice about the firing process, although that's like any other job, it becomes kind of routine after a while, but I still enjoy it. Yeah.
What are some of the ways the job of being a potter has changed over the course of your career?
Well, let's see. I feel like, just in general, I feel like in a way it's become more difficult. Not so much for me, but let's say for other people who were to go into it now, only because the cost of living has gone up a lot. So economically, I think maybe it's harder to get out and get a studio and do that type of thing. I think actually today more people work cooperatively, that is, groups of people get together to have a cooperative studio. There's one in Brattleboro, and the Clay Works in Brattleboro is a cooperative studio, rather than people setting up their own individual place. I think it's harder to find an old farm in the country that you can afford to buy compared to 40 years ago. Well, people are there's several people have studios down at the cotton mill in Marlboro. That's working out well. And there's a lot of cities where old industrial buildings have been converted into workshop spaces. And the cotton mill is interesting because there's all kinds of small businesses in that old factory building, including there's a glass blower and 2 or 3 potters, plus people doing a lot of other small businesses. So I think that's going to change, that there's more people are more often working in group situations like that than in, sort of having individual places out in the country.
Are there any other professional potters in town?
Oh yes, there's Malcolm Wright is one. He's been here the longest, and Matt Tell, he's been here a long time. He was a student. He was my first student at Marlboro at the college, and he worked 2 years with Malcolm Wright when he was still teaching here, and then 2 years with me. And I'm trying to remember Maya Zelkin, who was also a student here. She had a kiln here in Marlboro for some years. To her parents' house up on Higley Hill, but then she's moved up to central Vermont. So I think it's just those two or the other 2 potters. Yep.
What do you see as the future of your work and your studio in Marlboro?
Well, I don't know for sure, except that I'll be here. I'll be here, and I'll be getting my studio working, because I say when I stop teaching at the college, I'll be working in my own place. Now what I'll be doing most of, like pottery or building boats, I'm not sure. Boats, kayaks. I only need 1 or 2 more kayaks though, see, so once I get that, and wooden ones, see, I want to build some wooden ones, because using modern types of construction, you can make wood kayaks and canoes that are much lighter than plastic ones. And that's what I want, other than just I enjoy working with wood and making things, and there's a lot of satisfaction in, making your own kayak. I want one that's light enough that it's easy to put on the top of my car. So I'm thinking about that as much as I'm thinking about making pots.
What museums have collected your work, either in glass or ceramics?
Well, let's see. The main one is the Corning Museum of Glass in Corning, New York. That's a major museum. The Cleveland Museum, Art Museum in Cleveland, Ohio. And the Milwaukee, I think it's called Milwaukee Art Museum, and the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And there's a museum in Hamburg, Germany. It's called title. It's a Museum für Kunst und Gewerbe, which means the Museum of Decorative Arts in Hamburg, Germany. And then they have some of the glass museum in Ebeltoft in Denmark. And there's some other ones, but those are the ones that I remember. Chrysler Museum, that's in Virginia. I think there may be a couple others, but those are the ones I remember. So how much time do you guys have? I mean, I'm not trying to get rid of you. I want to know what you're, don't just, you let me know. It's your schedule.
I'm not sure. Like 20 more minutes?
Okay. Does that seem okay to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what I'll do too, in a few minutes, why don't I give David a call, and then we can also go across the road to the other studio so you can see that, see what a kill looks like and things like that.
You and Marlboro Weaver, Lucy Gratwick, have been partners for a good number of years.
Gee,
Have
how
the
do
two-
you know about me?
Have the two of you ever collaborated on pieces?
No, we haven't.
Have you ever discussed the ideas?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we like each other's work, and but we've never done sort of a collaboration on work, other than collaboration of maintaining a house and expanding it and things like that. So we've done quite a bit of collaboration, but not in our studio work.
You have a show with the Marlboro potter Malcolm Wright, which opened last weekend in the Drury Gallery here on the campus of Marlboro College. When was the last time you showed your work in a public venue?
Oh boy, that's hard to remember. It was probably the last time I had work in a faculty show in the same gallery here. Because I haven't, let's see. Well, I had a piece, actually, there was a piece of my work in a show at the Corning Museum. I guess it was 2 years ago. Because they had a show, Josh Simpson in Glassboro in Massachusetts. They had a show of spheres or globes or something. He made a giant paperweight for it. But then he called me up one day. He said, "Hey, there's one of your pieces is in this show at the Corning Museum." So that's the first I knew about that. So that was, I guess that was that. That's the last one I can remember.
What were some of the ideas behind showing your work along with Mr. Wright's?
Oh, partly just that we're good friends and we work together off and on over the years, and he's been very helpful to me in relation to the college program all along. And it was part of the idea was to see that I'm coming up to retirement time from teaching, and he was had the first pottery teacher at the college and started the program, and taught for 10 years, and then he stopped, and then I came in the picture, and I've been doing it for 30 years since then. And so it was part of like, well, here's the two people that taught pottery at Marlboro, and it'd be nice to have a show. So that's really how it came about. And we were both interested in each other's work, and I haven't had a relatively large group of my work out in a long time. And he had done this newer work, some of his work, he'd done sculptural things in clay, and then some of them he'd had done in bronze. That is, you could take the clay sculpture and use that as a model, and have a specialist, a bronze caster, work from that model, the original clay sculpture, and make a mold, and eventually go through the process of making a cast bronze version of the same one. And he would, and so he wanted to have a show that would show some of the original clay sculpture and the bronze pieces in relation to it. So that was his particular reason for wanting to have a show. We both, wanted to see each other's work, so that's why we did it.
About the body of work you created for the show, is it newly created, or are there some pieces from earlier periods in your career?
Some of it is quite recent. That is, it was done this winter. About a third of the show, I guess, was done certainly in the last 8 or 9 months. And then the rest of it was done over a period of time. It probably goes back 20 years or maybe even more in a few pieces, because I borrowed some pieces from people, individuals, in Marlboro and in Guilford who had them, included them in the show.
Why did you decide to show earlier works along with new work?
Oh, just because I wanted to see the relationship, and see how, it's what you call a retrospective, sort of a review of your work. Of course, I could say, well, part of it was that I needed enough pieces to make a show. And I didn't have that many recent pieces, so. No, it's just ones that I just really wanted to see the work over a period of time and see them together.
What would you like the viewers to come away with after seeing your work in the show?
Well, just enjoy seeing it in a gallery situation, because when you have the work in boxes or around your studio or someplace like that, you don't really see them very clearly. And the reason, part of the function of an art gallery, it's a space that's designed for work, to show work in a better way, and just to get it out and see it was the main thing that I want to get from it. And, it'll be up there for a while, and I can look at it and I'll see what I think about it. Maybe it'll give me some ideas of things I want to do in the future. And so that's the main things I think I'd want to get from it.
Is there anything you would like the viewer to understand about your work?
Well, only getting it out there and where you can see it and look at it, you can think about it and say, well, does this really make sense? How does it work visually? And maybe some things, you get it out there and you look at it a lot, and maybe you'll see it in a little different way than you did earlier, because your point of view changes with time. Yeah.
After your retirement from teaching, do you have plans to develop or redevelop the business side of your pottery?
I'll just sort of see what happens. I don't want to have to be in business any more than necessary. I want to be able to make things that I want to make and enjoy it. And we'll just sort of have to see how it goes. But I'm not going to sort of, at this point, I'm not going to figure, well, I'm setting up a business again, and I'm going to, go out and start promoting and doing a lot of production and that kind of thing. I'll just sort of see what happens.
Now I'd like to ask you a few questions about your life as a teacher.
Uh-oh.
How did you come to be a professor at Marlboro College?
Well, I came here because Malcolm Wright he got a leave, what they call a sabbatical, after 10 years. And so they needed someone to come and do the job while he was not teaching. And so I came, and they talked, they interviewed a number of people, I think, as they do when they're filling jobs. And I was hired to do the job, and then he took another year off, and so I stayed another year. And then finally he just decided that he had to make a choice between teaching and full-time studio work. And so he chose to stop teaching at that point. And so that's how I came to be here.
For how long have you been a professor here?
Well, the whole time I've been in Marlboro, about 30 years.
What courses do you teach?
Mostly pottery, although in the past every few years I've taught a course in color, how to work with color and learn about color just through experience. And then I've taught some introductory design classes, and I taught art history when our art historian had a sabbatical. 1 year I taught the basic art history course.
Do you have a favorite course to teach?
Well, yeah, the favorite course is to say, well, it's the one I'm teaching now, but I just like ceramics in general. I enjoyed teaching the color course most of the time. Somewhat, you know, how much you enjoy it depends somewhat on the students. But I just like any of the pottery classes.
Would you please describe a typical day at work?
Oh, that's too hard. That's such a huge question. I don't know if any day is typical, but you know, well, you know, probably sort of like your typical day at school. You come to school and you have things to do, and you see how students are coming along. You talk with them about things that they've made, or you watch them working and make suggestions, and then you show them how to do things. Maybe you load a kiln and fire a kiln, or you go up and you show them things about glazing pots. Just all the different aspects of pottery. And you do whatever you need to do on that day, and then over time, you're making, and then you're firing, and you're glazing, that type of thing. And then sometimes once a week in the evening, we have an hour when we look at videos about pottery. Sometimes it's technical ones about how to do it, and sometimes it's historical about pottery in different countries.
What do you feel are the more important parts of your teaching?
Well, maybe in a way the most important parts, I suppose, are the very beginning classes, when people get started and get introduced to a subject. I think that's probably the most, if you're going to, it's all important, but I think that maybe the most important is the very beginning things that people getting started in something, getting to know about it.
What people or experiences would you say have influenced you in your life as a teacher?
Well, a lot of things do. I mean, all your teaching experience does, students influence you. You learn things from students, or you learn things in the process of trying to help students. You have to learn things yourself. And so that's been important. I've learned a lot from my colleagues or other teachers. That's one of the interesting things about Marlboro, is that you have so much contact with people in different fields, not just in your own particular field. See, you know, when I was at the University of Wisconsin, I think there were 270 graduate students in the art department. You know, that's almost as big as the whole Marlboro College. So I think Marlboro's smallness and the fact that we have so much contact with people in different fields has been a big influence to me.
What are some of the parts of your job that you like?
What do I like? Well, I like the studio work, and I like in contact with students and with other teachers and my colleagues. I like that.
Are there parts of your job that you dislike or find less pleasant?
Well, yeah, most people would tell you that there's a lot of extra work in the teaching job, in the college particularly, committee work where you have things that relate to I call it institutional maintenance. But it's a lot of work that needs to be done, and so we do it. We have a lot of committee work, and other things come up that we have to deal with, and we work with the deans and the president and other people on just all the things that it takes to maintain and operate an institution like the college. And those things generally aren't as much fun as working in the studio with students and sometimes doing your own work. So.
What are some of the ways the job of teaching has changed over time?
Well, so that's one I probably have to think about quite a bit, because for me it hasn't changed that much. Hey, there he is. I kept telling them how much time they had, and when should we call? You're out of time, okay.
I'm gonna drive the car down here.
Okay, you okay? I think you're probably okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't get to the other studio.
No. Thank you for your time.
Okay, yes, you have to get packed up. And that's good, because that last question was one I'd have to think about quite a bit.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Glad to have you come. See the show that's up in the gallery. We can also, we could go up to the other studio and see what a show looks like.
First, can you tell me about the building you're in?
Well, this was the original pottery studio at the college, and this was the whole thing when I first came here. That other room in the building across the road where you were last time, that's a newer addition, but this was it. This was when Malcolm Wright started the pottery program here. This was it, and in the past it had been, I think, a blacksmith shop, and I think maybe even a sugar house and a motorcycle repair shop. That's what people told me. So that's kind of the history of the building. And this is where the kilns are. And if we make things over across the road, we carry them up here for firing and glazing them.
Do you know when the building was built?
I don't know. No, it's fairly old though. I think it looks like it was made from timbers from other buildings. You know, when you look, it's sort of a collection of old, the basic frame was these kind of old timbers. Some of them even look like they might have been hand hewn. So I think it was a farm building, so it's been here quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a few questions about life as a teacher.
Okay.
What are some of the ways the job of teaching has changed over time?
Well, I have to think about it. It doesn't seem to me that it's changed. That it's changed a whole lot, really. Just in, let's say, in the time of my experience here at the college, which is now, at this point, that's about 30 years. I don't feel it's changed very much because, and part of that may be because of what we're doing here, you know, ceramics or pottery, because that hasn't really changed any. The basic ways of making things and the basic nature of clay as a material, you know, hasn't changed for centuries in a way. So that if you're learning about the craft of pottery and ceramics, you're dealing with the same things that everybody has always dealt with. Now, it's true. We have a gas-fired kiln and we have an electric kiln. But those are things that people have had for, you know, quite a long time. Certainly, say the last 100 years or so. So the basic teaching in ceramics really hasn't changed much. Although there's some new materials that people have begun to use, and probably there's different ways of firing pottery. And people are using more different ways now than they used to. So I would say the teaching really hasn't changed much, although the field has changed some, and it has become somewhat more technical, and the variety of things that people are making has become greater. Okay, but I don't feel teaching has really changed much for me.
In what ways have students changed during the course of your teaching career?
Well, that again, I don't feel like they've changed an awful lot. I feel that there may be more, well, what we call pop culture that all young people are more connected with, has certainly become a larger factor in their lives than when I first started teaching. And of course, that's been increased by the means of communication that exist now. Yeah, it's pretty hard for me to say that. I'm trying to think, you know, about some students now and some students maybe, you know, a longer time ago, 20 or 30 years ago. And my experience of working with them in pottery hasn't changed that much. But I'm saying that's because maybe that the craft of ceramics or pottery, the fundamentals have been the same forever. I mean, clay, the nature of clay and the way of working with it, how the relationship of clay and water, which is very important, and the ways of working, and certainly there's been a lot of changes industrially, in industrial production, but fundamental things. And therefore, if people are interested in the subject and interested in learning it, then the process just doesn't seem to me to have changed that much. I don't know, maybe some people are a little less patient than they used to be. I mean, everybody seems to expect everything to happen faster now than they used to, but that's part of because our life in general is speeded up. But see, that doesn't make much difference to the clay into firing and the time that it takes. So,
What have some of your former students gone on to do?
well, a lot of different things. Some of them, a few of them are working as potters. They're making pottery, but I can think of 2 or 3. I can think of a couple that are doctors. One of them's actually in Brattleboro now. Another one is a graduate student in psychology and neuroscience up at Dartmouth. And part of that is there's just a huge variety of things that people are doing. A couple of them are filmmakers, because at Marlboro most of the people at the college, the students at the college are not terribly specialized. And they work in ceramics and they work in some other things too. The student now who lives in Brattleboro, and he works for a company down near Northampton that makes very specialized architectural hardware. Now his major was botany. It was like 60% in botany and 40% in ceramics, but he just did a huge amount of work. I mean, he really had 2 majors. And it was his work, and he still makes pots and has a kiln. But just this business, the matter of making things, is what interested him. And he's had a couple different jobs in which he's learned a lot of different things for working in different materials. So another one, I can think of another student who worked in ceramics and art history. She went into museum work, and she's been a museum curator and director, and now she's working in the historical society, the State Historical Society in Montpelier. So many different things, and it's only a few. I can think of 3 or 4. Matt Tell here in town, he was a student when I first came here, and he's been a professional potter ever since he graduated. So there have been a few that have really been in the field of ceramics, but others, while they found it interesting and it was an important part of their general education, they're doing lots of different things.
What people or experiences would you say have influenced you in your personal life? And in what ways have they influenced you?
Well, now, if you say personal life, let's see, I think we talked before about teachers or relation to ceramics. I guess the most important thing in a way in my personal life was deciding that I really wanted to live in Vermont, because when I was in college we came up to Vermont skiing a few times. Went to Mount Snow. So, and that was in 1950s. That was when Mount Snow had just gotten started. And I really liked Vermont. So then I think we spoke last time about how I was teaching, I was in the history before I got into pottery, and I was in graduate school in history, and then I came out to Vermont to teach at Sterling School, which is now called Sterling College, and taught history, because I really wanted to live in Vermont. And so then later, when I went to school again and learned pottery and worked in pottery and glass, I wanted to come back to Vermont. And I'm trying to think, I don't think of any particular individuals who influenced me. as far as, sort of how I wanted to live. And because that's what if you say, my personal life, that's basically just deciding how you want to live and where you want to live and the kinds of things you want to do. And I don't know, offhand it's hard to think of any particular individuals. I like the idea of living in the country, because I like Vermont so much, and I like winter and I like snow. And then, I just haven't been able to think. I think if I thought long enough later, if you asked me sometime later, I might be able to tell you.
What are some of your interests outside of pottery and teaching?
Okay, let's see. Well, I like skiing and skating, snowshoeing, anything to do in winter in the snow. I enjoy very much. And in the summer, I like to swim, and I do quite a bit of kayaking, both whitewater kayaking in the rivers, but also what we call flatwater kayaking, like on South Pond or some of the other ponds. And so those are the main things I like to do. I like working in the woods, and I don't try to cut all my own firewood, but I do some. And I think those are probably the main things. And I like music, various kinds of music. I really enjoy the music school and music festival here in Marlboro in the summer. And I like folk music and of all kinds. And yeah.
Is there anything else about your life or work that you'd like to mention but I haven't asked you about?
Well, you've asked me a lot of questions. That's been pretty thorough. I don't think so, other than I'm really pleased that I decided that, I could have quite a bit of choice. I mean, I came from the Midwest originally and went to school and college in several different places, and I suppose I could have lived almost anywhere, because in working as a potter, you'd have a lot of flexibility as to where you lived. But I think deciding that I really wanted to live in New England in general, and Vermont particularly, that's very important. That was more important to me than, I don't know, getting rich or having a real, world famous career or something like that. I think it's very important to decide sort of how you want to live and where you want to live, and then figuring out how you can do that. Now, for me, I think I was very lucky because I had this interest. I mean, I didn't decide to be a potter or work in pottery or glass because as a way of living where I wanted to. It all just kind of came together because living in Vermont was a good way to do those things too, because I could live in the country but not be far away from cities and places where you can get things or sell things and that kind of thing.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Boylen.
Oh, good. Well, I've enjoyed it. It's been really interesting, and I'm impressed with this crew here and how you do your job. Boy, you got everything organized. The visuals and the sound and the questions, and you go at it like you really know what you're doing. So that's great.
Yep.
Now, do you want me to show you any other things here?
Can we see the kiln?
Yes, you can see the kiln. Now, we have one here. This would be good to look at first, maybe. This kiln right here is electric. And in a way, by looking at it, you can see what a kiln is, because basically what it is an insulated box to contain heat. And it has to be very well insulated in order to get to quite high temperatures. I mean, this gets well beyond red heat. It gets quite hot. But you can see these lines here, those are those coils. You can just see they look like springs in there.
Uh-huh.
And those are electrical heating coils. You've all seen in a toaster, or a toaster oven, when it's on, those coils in there that are glowing red and they make the toast. This is exactly the same thing, it's just a lot bigger and more electricity going in there. And these switches control it. And so we fire things in there, but that's the basic idea of a kiln. And it's made with insulating fire brick, which this is a kind of brick that's very resistant to high temperature and yet also provides very good insulation. And that's a kiln, an insulated box. And there are many different types of kilns, and some are fired with oil or gas or wood, anything that puts out heat. And historically there have been many different types of kilns, but they all do the same basic thing. And we can show you the big one. You saw last time there were a bunch of pots around down in that other studio that were just dried mud. And this is what the pots are like. We fire them twice. And it's called that's a biscuit firing. You see, it's a ceramic. The clay has been, and it's a kind of magical thing that happens with clay, is that when you fire it to a high enough temperature, which is maybe 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, it becomes a dense, hard material. Now this is still not fired as high as it can go, because we take these and then we glaze them. We have glazed materials in these buckets here, and they're all different things. And so we take these pots and we pour the glaze. It's just mixed in materials and water, and you just pour it on there. It sort of goes on sort of like paint. But then we have well, I'll show you this one. This is somebody with making some big buttons. And you know, mostly we make pots, but if students have personal little projects they want to do, that's okay. But that's what the glaze looks like when it's put on the pot. And in this case, it's this big button, and there's two different types of glaze on there. And then we put it in the kiln again and fire it up, sort of like this. See, it's very shiny and glassy, because that's what happens. The glazed materials produce a glass when you heat them hot enough. And so we put the glaze on the bisque pot, put it back in the kiln and fire it up again, and you can see that's the fired clay body, and then this layer of glaze on the top of it. And that's what these pots here are. And you can see there's a lot of, this one's kind of ugly. The glaze went a little funny, but that happens sometimes. But you can see they're really bright blue from cobalt. And all these other colors are from iron, some different forms of iron. But the kiln outside is gas fired, and that's going right now, so we can take a look at that. And Josie's just checked the temperature and is writing it down, because you know how basic graph works. We'll show you the graph of this firing that we're working on right now. What's the temperature?
1605. Do you want to turn it up to a pound and a fourth?
I did, didn't I? I didn't mark it down there where it says 1560 at 1 o'clock.
No, you didn't mark it.
Yeah, that's what, I turned it to 1 1/4
Okay.
at that point. I'll bring the book over and we'll show people just how that works. Thanks. She met Josie the other time. She was working down in the studio. What did I do with my glasses? They were here a minute ago. Oh, here they are. Okay.
Alright, I have to go up north, Michael.
Oh, okay. Well, have a careful trip.
I will, but are you okay finishing this up?
Yeah. Are you going? You going to Northampton?
Yes, I think I didn't get on the trip tomorrow, but I think I might just go down by myself.
It'll be there another week.
What will it?
And it'll be there till the 28th. I just wanted to go this weekend to make sure that it didn't, we didn't miss it.
Yeah.
So we don't have to go this weekend, but it'd be good to see it.
I think, well, I'm thinking I'm just gonna end up driving down tomorrow, and I'll see that show and do some other things.
Okay.
So, yeah, but
Sure.
I can get reimbursed.
Whatever works for the museum,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Here's how we keep track of the firing. See, we do a simple graph, and this is one we're referring, this one is from, and we do this just so that we always know where we are and what's happening with the firing, and we can predict when it's going to end. But see here, on this vertical scale here is the temperature. And it starts here at 1,000 degrees, and it goes up the scale. And then this is the time. And we usually we put it in whenever things get started in the morning, because what we do is we do an overnight warm-up of the kill. We have the one burner on and heat it up overnight, and then in the morning we start turning it up. And see, this is the line of the graph going up according to temperature and time, and just goes up that line, and it's pretty predictable. But it's useful to us because if something goes funny with the firing, then we have a record of just what happened. And also, we like to be able to predict what's happening. And this firing that we're doing now is a first firing. Everything that's in there will come out looking sort of like this. And it's a lower temperature. See, this one ended, this is 1800, that line. So this was 1847, 1865, and that's where we shut it off at that point, and that was at about 3 o'clock. So maybe that's about where it'll be today. And I'll show you how you gauge how firing goes. We put these things, now what I'm showing you are the cones from a blaze firing, because they're more dramatic. But see, this is what it looks like when we put them in. And we put those, they're called cones. And we put them in the kill where we can pull a plug out of the wall of the kill, and we can look in and we can see those in there. And what they do is that they react to the temperature and to the time, because it isn't just how hot the kill gets, but it's how long are the pots exposed to that temperature. And these cones are made, they're manufactured very carefully so that they're always the same every time. And the colors tell you, which ones they are. This one, 8, 9, and 10. And here's what they look like when they come out of the firing. They bend. And you can see that the first one went down, and that melted the most. It's very glassy, and it kind of went out of shape. This one did the same thing, but it didn't get quite as soft. And this one, the 10, just barely started. You can see that it just started bending. And so, in this case, we had another set of cones in there, and we let the 10 get a little bit further down, usually. But it doesn't matter. Just the fact that it was getting soft and starting to bend tells us that that's enough. But see how it came out? How, it's very glassy. It's like porcelain. And so that's what we use in the kill to tell us what's happening in the firing, and then tell us when, because these things indicate the effect of the temperature and the time, and that's what's happening to the pots. They're being exposed to high temperature for a period of time. And so this is more useful to us than knowing exactly what the temperature is at any moment, because we need to know the total effect on the pots of the firing. So we can go outside and take a look. And you see, we've got a few pots here that are ready to glaze, but the firing in there now will get a lot of pots out that are in this bisque state, so then we'll have to glaze and do another press. Here's a glazed pot that the green color is from copper, and in this case the blue color is from cobalt. So, let's see what's happening out here.
Wait.
plug out here if you want to plug in too.
Well,
It's whatever you
don't see
like
that.
to do. You can plug in out here. So this kiln is really, in a way, it's the same as that electric kiln in there. It's a brick box to hold heat. And here's where we put the heat in. And you can see these burners are sort of like the burners in a gas cooking stove. They're just much larger. And you can see, I'll take these bricks out of the way so you can see better what they are. See, that's what the burner looks like. And there's two of them, one on each side. And see, they're putting out a pretty big flame. You can't hardly see it, but let's see. And then, because this is like an electric kiln, you're not burning anything, so you don't have to have a chimney. But this is sort of, in a way, like a wood stove. You know, you're putting in the heat, you've got to have a chimney to let it out. And so that's what this pipe does. And it pulls the heat goes into the kiln and it rises up, but then there has to be, in order to burn fuel, there has to be a draft going through it, just like a wood stove. So it comes into the base of the chimney down here. And we control the size of the opening into the chimney by moving this thing in and out. And we measure the ruler so that it's out 10 centimeters. And let's see, do we see anything in here? No, that's kind of dark, but we have these holes. This is, I won't pull this one up because the sun is so bright here that you really can't see anything, but there's probably some flame will come out of there if I take that plug out. But I take that out and I can look in there and see the cones. And I'll show you, there's another one on the side of the kiln where you can probably look in and see. So I'll show you that in a minute, but I'll take a look here. Yeah, you just barely know. You have to be careful because you assume that there's a real hot, lot of hot air coming out of that opening. And I don't know if you can see, you can just see in there. But we'll look in the side. I think we can see better over here. And this, see, there's a pyrometer up here. This is a thermometer. And what it's going, there's a probe that goes into the inside of the kiln, and we'll punch that and it'll tell us what the temperature is. And you can, it's 1640 Fahrenheit. Now this one will show centigrade too, 893.8, and it's going up. It's about 894 centigrade. Push that again and it'll Fahrenheit, because in science they use centigrade a lot, in fact all the time, for a system of measuring, but we use Fahrenheit because it's what we're most familiar with. So 1641, so there's about 200 degrees more to go before it finishes. Let's look in this peak hole here. Okay. Oh yeah, don't stick your nose up close to it, but here your head out about where mine is and you can look in there and see. So it's looking pretty hot in there. It's orange. Can you see the cones sticking up?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we'll want to do, is we're going to watch them and watch for them to bend. And when they bend over, we know it's done. And there's another set of cones up on the other side of the kiln. Yeah, watch out for all those wires. And everybody can come and get a look inside the peak hole so you can see the inside. See, it's pretty hot. But right now, if you have wood stoves at home, they're as hot as this. I mean, our glaze firing gets quite a bit hotter. But see it? in there? And we've got shelves in there. What we do is we have some shelves. They're made out of material that's very resistant to heat, and some posts, and we just build up the shelves in the kiln and put the pots on the shelves. And it's called kill furniture. And that's pretty much how it works. Well, the temperature's gone up a little bit since we came out here. It's gone up about 2 or 3 degrees, so maybe it's time to turn it up a little more. Let's see, or do we go to 1 1/4? Let me look at our book here.
Don't drop it.
Yeah, in the fire.
I have 6 minutes left.
Oh god.
This thing does not have a lot of tape.
You might want to pause it.
No, it'll run out.
You're going to free range without it.
I know. I tried doing that.
Pretty. Oh, that was a bad picture. Yeah.
Oh, maybe
Supporting
I'll
everything you're saying.
come here and turn up the gas just a little bit. You know, look at this gauge here. I have a pressure gauge, and I'll turn it up.
Thank you.
And you can hear. You listen to the sound of the burner and see if it changes. It's pretty quiet now. Not much. It changed a little bit in sound, but I just went up about 1/4 pound of pressure on the gauge, because that's how we will determine how much gas is going in there. We just raise the temperature by raising the amount of gas going into the kiln. So I want the other side to do the same. I'll raise that a little bit. It's a little windy. The wind affects the kiln some, so I don't know if it makes it go faster or slower. But once the kiln gets good and hot, why then it's fine. It just, the heat is going through the kiln and going up the chimney. I mean, this it's really too hot to touch. It's fairly hot. And this is a pretty standard, you know, type of kiln, but there are others. So let's see, is there anything else that you need, or would you
Don't think so.
like to know? Okay. We need to call, give David a call?
Yeah.
Okay. You have the number?
Yes.
You
Is there a
will-
phone somewhere?
Yeah, it's one of the nearest one's right across, should be right across the road. Let me make sure I have keys. Excuse me. And where's my coat? Oh, I have that here.
Have you ever heard of Warfire Glass Studio in New York?
No, where is it?
It's in Rochester.
Oh, it's in Rochester, New York?
Yeah, my aunt owns it.
Oh, yeah? Well, it used to be, I mean, years ago, I knew a lot of the people in glass, but there are quite many of them now. Is it right in Rochester?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's not one, I haven't been to Rochester for a long time. I went to school there many years ago. What's his name?
Well, my aunt is Elizabeth Lyons.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so she knows Warfire Glass Studio.
Is it glass blowing, or do they do like glass windows?
Well, it's glass blowing, and they make beads and stuff.
They make what?
They make like beads and
Oh, yeah.
they
Okay.
blow glass.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do, that's a very old tradition too, you know, making glass beads. You do some pretty amazing things. Yeah. So you wanna go call up David?
Yes, please.
I mean, I could call him up, but that's part of your job, is that right?
Should I don't know.
What?
I don't think it really matters, but.
Oh, okay, well, you can come on across the street and call him up, and you guys, I guess, pack up your gear, that'll take a little time. We'll be right back.